Queen Lyra slammed her scepter onto the obsidian dais, the chime reverberating through the vaulted chamber of the meridian spire like a thunderclap restrained by crystal. "By the ancestral mandate of the first coil, I convene this royal council," she declared, her voice a silken blade cutting through the murmurs of her assembled lords. "The petition for the binding accord stands before you, invoked by my hereditary right to bind the realm against the encroaching void." The council chamber hummed with tension, its walls of iridescent scalestone pulsing faintly under the glow of levitating orbs. Serenthine nobles shifted in their high-backed thrones, their elongated necks arching in subtle displays of dissent or deference, crests flaring like half-unfurled banners. Lyra felt the weight of their gazes, each one a probe testing the cracks in her resolve. Her empire teetered on the precipice of fracture. Border skirmishes with the Caliph Dominion had bled her fleets dry, and whispers of uprising from the outer spires grew louder by the cycle. This alliance with the upstart human worlds was no whim. It was survival cloaked in ancient law. She gestured to the antechamber doors, which parted with a hydraulic sigh. "Enter Commander Jonah Hale, envoy of Earth and designated representative engineer for the treaty." The human stepped forward, his stride measured and unhurried, clad in a simple black tunic edged with the silver helix of diplomatic accord. No ornate robes, no hovering aides, just him, standing at ease amid the towering serentine frames. Lyra's crest twitched involuntarily. Humans were frail things, barely cresting her shoulder height, their skin unscaled and eyes fixed forward without the instinctive sway of true predators. Yet this one's composure held steady, his gaze meeting hers without flinching, as if the chamber's gravity meant nothing. Chancellor Mail rose from his seat at her right, his robes whispering like dry leaves over stone. The old steward's scales gleamed with the polish of decades in power, his crest fully extended in ritual challenge. "Empress, with all due reverence," he intoned, his voice a resonant baritone laced with frost. "Ancient precedents from the Third Reckoning forbid such bindings. The scrolls of purity decree that no off-world consort may sully the coil's lineage. A failed treaty invites not merely scandal but the unraveling of your line, council revolt, spire secession, the Dominion's jaws closing on our weakened flanks." Murmurs swelled into a low hiss, crests rippling across the chamber. Lyra quelled them with a raised talon, her mind racing through the political lattice. Mail spoke truth wrapped in venom. His hardline faction clutched those precedents like shields, their loyalty a double-edged blade. But duty demanded this gamble. The human treaty promised technical infusions to rebuild her shield grids, resources her people could not forge alone. "Your counsel is noted, Chancellor," she replied, her tone unyielding as forged alloy. "Yet the mandate empowers me to stabilize the realm. The human will serve as ceremonial consort pending review. Guards, restrict his access to outer protocols only." As the words left her mandibles, a flicker danced across the treaty archive interface hovering at the chamber's center, a holographic lattice of swirling glyphs and data streams, the sacred repository of accords spanning millennia. It stuttered, glyphs fracturing mid-projection, the provisional treaty text dissolving into static. Gasps echoed. Such glitches were omens in Serentine lore, harbingers of flawed bindings. Jonah Hale tilted his head slightly, his eyes narrowing on the display. Without invitation, he stepped closer to the dais, his voice calm and precise. "Empress, if I may, the error stems from a phase mismatch in the glyph renderer. Protocol 47. Alpha requires a secondary authentication pulse before archive sync, but the interface is defaulting to legacy mode." Lyra's talon froze mid-gesture. How did this human know Seraphine procedure? Ceremonial consorts were figureheads, not scholars of her people's arcane systems. Mail's crest snapped fully erect, his scales bristling. "Insolence. The archive is sovereign tech. Restrain punitive measures, Chancellor," Lyra commanded, her voice cracking the air like a whip. Intrigue stirred beneath her formality. The human's intervention was no guesswork. She watched as he extended a hand toward the interface, not touching but gesturing with deliberate calm. "Permit the correction?" She nodded curtly, curiosity overriding protocol. Jonah interfaced his personal gauntlet, a slim human device that hummed faintly, linking wirelessly. Lines of code scrolled across the hologram, alien script mingling seamlessly with Serentine runes. His fingers danced in the air, multitasking diagnostics, cross-referencing glyph phases, rerouting power flows, and patching a latent buffer overflow, all while maintaining eye contact with the council. His posture relaxed as if balancing a routine maintenance log. The interface stabilized with a resonant chime, the treaty text reforming crisp and whole. Nobles leaned forward, crests quivering in unison, amazement flickering in their multifaceted eyes. Mail's mandibles clicked shut, his gaze sharpening on the human with newfound wariness. Diagnostic complete. Jonah said simply, stepping back. The archive was cross-wired to an obsolete relay from the last council cycle. It's stable now. Full treaty parameters accessible.
Lyrae suppressed a ripple of surprise along her spine scales.
Humans were dismissed as primitives, their tech clunky and intuitive, yet this one had dissected her empire's most guarded system in moments, spotting patterns her own technicians might chase for hours. His title understated him gravely, a representative engineer indeed, but with the adaptability of a shadow operative. Still, she held her regal mask firm. Your utility is observed, Commander. The council proceeds.
Mail pressed forward, undeterred.
Empress, this display changes nothing. The precedents. Silence the debate, Lyrae interjected, her crest flaring to full dominance. The chamber fell hushed. She had weighed the threads. Rebellion brewed in the outer spires, fueled by Mael's whispers, the Caliph fleets massed beyond sensor range. Personal objections to binding with this soft-skinned outsider, to diluting the coil's purity, churned within her, a storm against duty's unyielding current. But the realm demanded stability. She extended her scepter, pressing its seal into the glowing interface. The provisional accord is signed. The binding advances under my mandate. Holographic seals bloomed across the display, binding the treaty in irrefutable light. Cheers erupted from her loyalists, tempered hisses from Mael's faction. The Chancellor bowed stiffly, his eyes promising future contention, but Lyrae felt the fracture mending, if only by a thread. Jonah Hale met her gaze again, a faint nod of acknowledgement passing between them, no triumph, just quiet competence. In that moment, amid the political coils tightening around her throne, Lyrae glimpsed something unforeseen, a consort whose usefulness might anchor more than mere machines. As the council dispersed into side chambers for ratification debates, she signaled Jonah to her dais.
You overstepped protocol, human.
Explain your knowledge of our systems. He paused, hands clasped behind his back, voice even. Earth's diplomatic prep includes full archive simulations. Empress. Standard procedure. Adapt to the host's framework. No offense intended. The word lingered, a subtle challenge to her preconceptions. Serenthines mastered their tech through rote generations. This human had improvised across cultural chasms in a breath. Mael lingered at the chamber's edge, watching with hooded eyes. But Lyrae turned away, her mind already weaving new strategies. Duty had forced this covenant, but utility might forge something enduring. The spire's alarms remained silent, for now. The real tests lay ahead, in crises yet to uncoil. Queen Lyrae raised her crest in imperial decree, her voice threading the vast chamber like a blade through silk. The Treaty of Meridian binds our worlds, but the archives seal it eternally. Attendants unfurled holographic scrolls, their lumens casting azure glows across the nobles' scaled faces, while Jonah Hale stood confined to his dais, a gilded cage at the chamber's edge, protocol's unyielding barrier. She watched him from the throne, her multifaceted eyes narrowing. The human envoy, this Jonah Hale, bore his ceremonial robes with the stiffness of one unaccustomed to such splendor, yet his posture held no tremor. Formal distance suited her. It armored the alliance against whispers of frailty. Enforce the rites without flaw, she commanded Chancellor Mael, who inclined his frilled neck in deference, though his tail tip flicked with veiled impatience. No deviation. The human station remains restricted. Mael's response slithered smooth as venom. As your radiance decrees. Purity in protocol preserves us all, he signaled the scribes, and the ratification hummed forward, seals imprinting, oaths recited in resonant Serentine cant. Lyra's mind tallied the fractures already forming, hardline nobles shifting in their alcoves, their crests half-lowered in dissent. The treaty was necessity, forged in the shadow of rival empires gnawing at her borders. But it demanded this human consort. Her consort. The word soured, unspoken on her tongue. As the final lumen sealed, a low chime pierced the air, not alarm, but warning. From the treaty archive's core, embedded in the chamber's heart, a diagnostic glyph flickered erratically on the central holo display, nobles murmured, crests rippling like wind through kelp. Lyra leaned forward, her claws tapping the throne's arm once, sharply. Report. Jonah Hale stepped to the dais's edge, his voice cutting clear through the translation field, steady as unyielding stone. Your radiance, that's a failing stabilization module in the archive. Quantum flux instability. It's degrading the ratification logs as we speak. He gestured precisely, not at the nobles but at the display's readouts, his fingers tracing patterns only he seemed to parse. Human engineering doctrine calls for triple redundancies. Your system has two, We can invoke the tertiary protocol I observed in your auxiliary buffers. The chamber stilled. Mail's crest flared subtly. A human presumes to lecture on Serentine archives? The module is calibrated for eternities beyond your species span. Jonah met the Chancellor's gaze without heat, his expression one of patient focus. With respect, Chancellor, the diagnostics don't calibrate for entropy cascades like this. I've seen it in orbital rigs. Allow me to brief the court. He activated a portable emitter from his station, projecting a schematic overlay. Human-style flowcharts blooming beside the Serentine glyphs, highlighting failure nodes with ruthless clarity. Lyra suppressed a ripple of intrigue along her flanks. The human juggled data streams effortlessly. Archive metrics, cultural protocols, even the chamber's subtle acoustics to modulate his voice for maximum carry. No arrogance, just workmanlike precision. Nobles leaned in, some crests lifting in reluctant curiosity. He explained redundancies not as superiority but as layered caution. Earth vessels layer failsafes because voids don't forgive single points. Yours are elegant, single-thread masterpieces. Ours are webs for the unexpected. Before Mail could retort, a ripple spread through the lower tiers. A data pedal circulated among the nobles, holographic, insidious, bearing a petition etched in archaic script. Ancient law of heir's blood, it proclaimed, invoking the edict barring non-Serentine consorts from succession thrones. The treaty taints legitimacy, expel the off-worlder, preserve the spire's mandate. Crests flared in waves, murmurs cresting to a susurrus. Mail's tail curled approvingly. He had not authored it, but its emergence suited him. Lyra's core tightened. The petition struck at her empire's heart. Succession woes amplified by the treaty's demands for a bound pair to ratify borders against the Varath incursions. Expel Jonah, and the archive's instability became pretext for collapse, but yield to the petition, and factions unraveled her rule. She rose, her presence quelling the chamber like a gathering storm. Silence. Petitions invoke law, they do not command empresses. Her gaze pinned Mail. Chancellor, you shepherd protocol, does this law bind before ratification seals? Mail hesitated, frills quivering. It raises concerns of legitimacy, radiance. The archives must stand pure. Then purity demands assessment, not expulsion. Luray's decision cracked the air, formal shell yielding to resolve. Marshal Creve supervised the human. Repair the module in closed session. If it holds, so does the treaty. Fail and consequences follow. The Marshal, a broad-thewed Serentine with scars from Vorath skirmishes, rumbled assent, his crest neutral but eyes sharp. He escorted Jonah to the archive core, a sealed vault beneath the chamber dais, protocol codes barring all but overseers. Lirhe watched from above, the ceremony's rigid spacing a chasm between thrones, hers elevated, his laboring below. Nobles strained for views, but holoscreens relayed only sanctioned feeds. In the vault's glow, Jonah knelt amid pulsing conduits, tools materializing from his modest kit with practiced grace. Marshal Creve loomed, arms crossed, his bulk a testament to Serentine endurance in prolonged sieges. Proceed, off-worlder. But no, sabotage whispers follow you. Jonah nodded, ungloved hands delving into the module's lattice, delicate filaments that would shred lesser grips. Understood, Marshal. Flux readings show microfractures. I'll bypass with a field shunt. He multitasked seamlessly, one hand rerouting power, the other logging diagnostics on a wrist pad, while verbally calibrating with Creve. Your lattice design is brilliant, self-healing polymers. Humans adapt with modular swaps. Yours anticipate stress vectors we model post hoc. Creve's crest twitched, surprise etching his scales. Humans fatigued after shifts that felled Serentines. This one worked without pause, adapting to alien interfaces as if born to them. But creativity? Prove it prevents corruption. Jonah's pattern recognition bloomed. A subroutine anomaly, not failure. Tampered checksums in the log buffers. There, sabotage. Someone injected a decay virus during pre-ratification access. It's targeting treaty seals specifically. He isolated it with an improvised quarantine, weaving human algorithmic intuition over Serentine rigidity, a novel cascade filter born from connecting archive logic to atmospheric stabilizer precedents. Alarms flickered but died, data preserved. Creve leaned in, his breath hissing. Our logs are inviolate. Yet his claws tapped approval, reluctant respect cracking his stoic facade. You foresaw this weave. Serentine's drill protocols, you improvise as if chaos is kin.
Teamwork, Marshal, Jonah replied simply, wiping lubricant from his hands. Your oversight caught the access logs I missed.
Combined, we hold the line. Lyre High observed the feed, her core warming despite propriety's chill. The repair succeeded. No corruption, no scandal erupting before the court. Mail's petition faltered, nobles' crests drooping as hollows confirmed integrity. Yet ceremony code held. Jonah returned to his distant station, the chasm unbridged even as his hands had just salvaged her throne's legitimacy. She signaled recess, mind already uncoiling the next threat. Sabotage in the heart of the spire, Chancellor's allies or deeper foes? Jonah's gaze met hers across the void, a flicker of shared vigilance. Protocol kept them apart, but alliance whispered of bridges yet to build. The spire thrummed steady, but shadows lengthened. Council reconvened amid a hush fractured by whispers, the chamber's crystal vaults amplifying the tension like a blade drawn across silk. Queen Learhay ascended her dais, her iridescent scales catching the lumen globe's glow, mandibles clicking once in summons to order. Chancellor Mail rose first, his vestigial wings twitching with rehearsed indignation, voice booming through the translator webs. Your Radiance, the sabotage demands excision. This human Jonah Hale compromises our sanctity. Exile him to the outer rims, lest his presence invites further chaos upon the spire. Murmurs rippled, hardliners nodding their crested heads, frills flaring in unison. Learhay felt the weight of their stares, a tide pulling at her throne's foundations. Mail's faction had swelled since the outage, their arguments laced with ancestral purity laws that bound her hands tighter than any chain. Yet across the chamber, Proconsul Vera leaned forward, her lesser antennae quivering with urgency. Exile invites collapse, Chancellor. Hale's diagnostics mended the nexus relays. Human intuition bridged gaps our rote protocols overlooked. Border stations flicker without stability. His skills anchor them. Lyra inclined her head fractionally, masking the coil of calculation within. Jonah stood silent at the Alliance dais, his compact frame unyielding amid the towering serentine forms, eyes scanning the chamber's shadowed alcoves. Protocol barred him speech unbidden, but his presence alone ignited the fracture. She signaled the drill overseer.
Demonstrate. Let data silence debate.
The chamber dimmed as holographic grids bloomed across the central hololith, projecting the palace defense net, a labyrinth of phased barriers, sentry drones, and kinetic wards woven through the spire's adamantine bones. Overseer Kef activated the simulation, a virtual intruder breaching outer cordons, weaving toward the council vault. Jonah stepped forward without flourish, his fingers dancing over the interface pad linked to his wrist gauntlet. Learhay watched, mandibles parting slightly as he traced routes not in the standard manifolds. He bypassed a tertiary ward by syncing it to a maintenance subchannel, Serentine auxiliary logic rarely invoked outside siege doctrine. Then a feint through drone patrols, predicting their patrol ellipses from residual heat signatures. Secure path here, he said evenly, voice steady through translation, marking a vein in the grid that looped back on itself, trapping the simulacrum. Bottleneck at Junction 9, reroute sentries to flank. Kef's compound eyes widened, facets gleaming. He maps our shadow tactics. Humans lack our neural overlays. How? The simulation locked the intruder. Grids pulsing green. Gasps echoed. Even Mail's frills drooped a fraction. Learhay noted it all, her primary mind threading the implications. Jonah returned to his station, wiping a bead of sweat with casual efficiency, as if plotting imperial defenses were mere maintenance. Before rebuttals could form, chaos erupted. A minor counselor, Advocate Tiss of the Rim Holds, clutched his thorax mid-speech, keening as a sliver dart bloomed from his shoulder plate. Poison gleamed on the barb, his legs buckling amid a spray of hemelymph. The chamber erupted, frills flared, claws scraped stone. Guards surged with plasma lances humming to life. "Assassin!" Mail bellowed, his voice cracking protocol's veneer. "Seal the vaults!" Emergency ward snapped active, shimmering fields dividing the chamber into kill zones. Learhay rose, her voice a thunderclap. "Hold positions. Trace the vector." Her personal guard encircled her dais, but her gaze sought Jonah amid the press. He was already moving, gauntlet interfacing with a guard terminal, eyes flicking between the hololith and the rafters where a cloaked shadow darted. The assassin, a lithe figure in null weave, frills hooded, leapt from an alcove, propulsion vents hissing. Guards fired wide, lances scorching air. Tice convulsed, antidote injectors hissing futilely as foam bubbled from his mandibles. Jonah's voice cut through. "Field report. Your Radiance. Dart trajectory from upper gantry, east 3rd. Comms burst detected. Encrypted pulse to external relay. He's linked." Lyra pivoted, overruling Mail's snarled objection. "Deploy the human as tactical advisor. Guard dispositions to his mark. Now." Mail's crest flattened in outrage. "Radiance? He is ceremonial. Results overwrite, Chancellor." Her tone brooked no fracture. Jonah nodded once, humble deference in the incline of his head, then directed the nearest squad. Flank Alpha Route Seal Junction 9 as per drill. Beta team, jam that pulse frequency. I've got the signature. Guards hesitated a heartbeat, antennae twitching at orders from soft-skinned flesh, but Learhay's glare propelled them. Jonah multitasked seamlessly, one hand sketching blockades on the hololith, the other relaying to drone control via his gauntlet, adapting Serenthine syntax on the fly. He juggled patrol reallocations while scanning for pattern echoes. 3 pulses prior, masked as maintenance pings. The assassin vaulted a barrier, vents scorching a guard's carapace, but Jonah's posture snapped it shut. Sentries converged, kinetic nets deploying in a web the intruder slammed into mid-leap. It thrashed, null weave fraying to reveal Serenthine markings. Rim faction sigils but laced with foreign alloy threads. Secure, Jonah called, as guards pinioned the figure. He knelt by the comms node, extracting a micro-relay with improvised tools from his belt. Links to 3 cells, 2 internal, 1 off spires. Pattern matches the outage ghosts. The chamber fell silent save for Tice's ragged breaths. Stabilizers finally steadying him. Mael's mandibles ground audibly, but he held silence as guards dragged the assassin to containment. Proponents murmured approval, frills easing, even neutrals tilted crests in reassessment. Learhay descended her dais, scales whispering against the stone, and approached Jonah. Up close, his scent was alien, warm mammalian musk amid their cool ozone tang. But his poise held steady, no boast in his stance. She accepted the extracted relay from his gloved hand, her claw brushing his fingers in unavoidable contact. A spark of unfamiliar warmth flickered, protocol's shell cracking just enough. Report validated, she said, voice low for his ears amid the settling chaos. Your mapping mirrors our deep doctrine, shadow wars from the fracturing era. How does a human know such? He met her multifaceted gaze with steady brown eyes, a faint smile tugging without arrogance. Studied your archives during transit, your radiance. Patterns repeat across conflicts. Connected the dots from your public sims and border logs. Team effort got the block. Your guards executed clean.
Keth hovered near, antennae probing the relay.
Impossible. Neural overlays take cycles to attune. He adapted in moments. Humans? Pattern match without augmentation? Lyra filed the amazement, her assumptions shifting like tectonic plates. Jonah's tactics weren't brute novelty but elegant fidelity to Serenthine precision, wielded with an adaptability that bypassed their biological limits. Endurance, too. It run the drill, interfaced live and orchestrated without falter, while her guards flagged from the surge. Mael approached, voice laced with frost, a fluke radiance. The Alliance risks, delivers, she cut in, strength unyielding. Hale advises guard rotations until cells are purged. Council, adjourn, to secure vaults. As they dispersed, Jonah fell in beside her escort, his presence no longer ornamental. Proconsul Veyra caught Learhay's eye, frills signaling approval. Mael's glare promised deeper fractures, yet in Jonah's quiet vigilance, Learhay glimpsed a bridge, human resilience meshing with Serenthine order, turning ceremonial frailty into tactical steel. Shadows in the spire now held less certainty. A human's hand had illuminated their links, protocol strained but alliance hardened. Lord Vesiparak of House Thalor slammed his crest plate onto the council dais, the resonant chime slicing through the murmur of the spire chamber. Empress Learhay, the Meridian bloodline endures not by alien whims, but by sacred continuity. Replace the human with a suitor of proven lineage. Lord Caliph stands ready, or watch public faith fracture like brittle crystal. Lyra sat enthroned at the chamber's apex, her iridescent scales catching the aurora lights in a facade of unyielding poise. Whispers rippled from rival houses, Thal, Nixar, and their veiled allies, each envoy's mandibles clicking in rehearsed outrage. Mael, her chancellor, lingered at her flank, his gaze a hooded blade, but she felt the strain in his stillness. Protocol demanded she entertain their petition. Empire demanded she crush it. Lord Vesperak, she intoned, voice a silken lash, the treaty binds us to strength beyond blood. Speak plainly, what purity do you preserve when enemies circle? Vesperak's frills flared crimson. Public confidence, Majesty. The spire's murmur of dilution, annul the human's role. Secure a Serenthine consort, and the houses unite behind you. Cheers erupted from his block, a calculated wave crashing against her throne. Nixar's matriarch nodded subtly, her eyes flicking to Mile. Too deliberate, Learhay noted, her mind tracing the old webs of court. She raised a claw, silencing them. The council deliberates.
Adjourned.
As they filed out, mandibles grinding dissent, Mail leaned close. They press because you waver, Empress. The humans? Insights unsettle them. Unsettle the guilty, she murmured, rising with imperial grace. Shadows in the spire now held less certainty. Jonah's hand had illuminated their links. Protocol strained, but alliance hardened. She dismissed Mail with a glance and summoned her envoy. Time to wield the human's edge. Jonah Hale hunched over the cipher console in the antechamber alcove, fingers dancing across the holographic keys with a rhythm that bordered on instinct. Serenthine encryption layered like sedimentary rock, patterns within patterns, alien logic built on harmonic resonances rather than binary flips. He'd cracked worse in field ops, back when Earth ops meant jury-rigging reactors under fire. Here it was politics. Intercepted missives from the council fringes, veiled barbs urging treaty annulment. A fractal bloomed under his touch, decrypting in cascades. Got you, he muttered, eyes narrowing. Coordinates tied Vesperek's estate to fringe world relays. Funds funneled from the Vorath Concord, that hostile empire beyond the veil. Not just dissent, manipulation. House Thaler wasn't leading the charge. They were puppets, strings pulled by embargo-hungry rivals. He cross-referenced seals, Vorathian watermarks, faint but there disguised as Serenthine flourishes. Humans saw patterns in chaos. Aliens built walls around them.
The door irised open. Luray entered. Her presence a gravitational pull, towering yet measured.
Jonah straightened, wiping sweat from his brow, endurance kicking in after hours at the console, no fatigue nagging yet. Empress. Found something. She glided to the display, frills neutral. Report. He tapped the holo, projecting the web. Encrypted correspondence. Rival houses aren't acting alone. Vorad Concord's pulling strings. Funds. Agitators. They're stoking the suitor push to erode support for our treaty. If they replace me, bloodline purity becomes the excuse to void it entirely. Her golden eyes scanned the decryption, mandibles parting slightly. A rare tell of surprise. Serenthine minds excelled at hierarchical strategy, but this human unraveled layered deceptions like peeling fruit. Vorath, she echoed, voice low thunder. They announce embargo at dawn cycle. Trade halts, defense alloys, withheld. Hints of coercion follow, fleets massing at the Veil unless we annul. Jonah nodded. Multitasking feeds, council chatter, trade manifests. Vorath fleet pings. They're betting on your court's orthodoxy cracking first. But this ties Mail's faction too. Subtle endorsements in the cipher trail. Lyray's tail lashed once, controlled. Contempt for humans had ebbed since his prior revelations, replaced by a wary regard. This one didn't boast. He simply persisted, connecting dots her analysts orbited for cycles.
Proof enough to act.
We counter diplomatically. Envoy dispatches to Vorat's border station at once. Demand clarification under Accord protocols.
And me?
Jonah asked, already plotting routes. You accompany.
I observe via secure relay.
Her tone brooked no debate, yet a flicker in her gaze acknowledged his role. Not ceremonial prop, but blade. Hours blurred into transit. Jonah rode the envoy shuttle, Learhay's relay feed humming in his earpiece. The Vorath delegation awaited at the neutral station. Hulking, chitin-armored envoys with vibro-mandibles and a reputation for blunt force over finesse. Briefing chamber. Dim-lit seals and oaths projected for the record. Vorath Prime Envoy Grask loomed over the table, his underlings flanking a trembling Serenthine defector. House Nixar Minor coerced into confession. Treaty invalid, Grask boomed, translation field warping his growl. Your Empress forges seals. Witness swears it. The defector quivered, scripted words on his tongue. Jonah's eyes locked on the holoseals flanking the confession scroll. Forged ink variances, harmonic mismatches in the resonance embeds. Serenthine seals pulsed in perfect octave. These jittered off key, Vorath tech mimicking poorly. Hold, he said, voice steady rising. Multitasking, scan, cross-ref, project his prior decrypts. Those seals are fakes. Look resonance drift at 3.7 Hz. Your own forgers slipped. Grask's compound eyes whirred, focusing. The defector blinked, chain of command fracturing in his relief. Human lies, a Vorath sub-envoy barked, but Grask silenced him with a claw snap. Jonah patched Learhay's relay live. Empress, verify. Her image materialized, regale fury veiled in ice. Prime Envoy, your evidence insults the Accord. Forgery proven. Expel your agitators or face blockade reprisal. Aliens like him prized direct power. This human's precision pierced their bluff without bluster. The defector crumpled, confessing Vorath coercion under duress. Seals revoked, confession nullified. Envoy withdrew. Embargo threats hollowed. Relay cut. Learhay strode the spire's detention wing, guards parting. Mael awaited in the interrogation sphere, bound by null fields. His composure cracked. Frills wilted. Empress, he began. Voice protocol smooth. The houses merely... Cease, she commanded, circling him. Jonah flanked her, silent witness. His presence a quiet anchor. Mael's eyes flicked to the human, disdain warring with dawning calculation. Vorath strings in your web, Chancellor. Council factions, foreign gold. You preserved purity at Empire's peril, for the Spire's true line. Humans dilute. The human preserved it, Learhay cut in, formality fracturing into steel. Jonah had juggled ciphers, forgeries, briefings without falter, human endurance, adaptability her court envied in whispers. She'd ordered the countermeasure to test him. He'd exceeded. Respect stirred, unbidden. Not ally by duty, but by deed. Detained for full inquiry, orthodoxy yields to survival. As guards hauled Mael away, his gaze lingered on Jonah, dismissal shifting to unease. Lyrae turned to the human, voice softening a fraction. You saw what my own missed, again.
Jonah shrugged, humble as ever. Patterns connect across borders.
Vorath thought us divided. We're not. She nodded, a rare frill twitch of accord. Shadows deepened abroad, conspirators exposed at home. But in this human's steady gaze the alliance gleamed sharper, equal partners forging through fire. Protocol bent, empire endured. Yet Vorath fleets still massed, and court purists simmered. The true test loomed beyond the veil. The crystal spires of the grand concourse hummed with the chant of 1,000 voices, their frills pulsing in synchronized fealty as Queen Learhay raised her scepter high. Sunlight fractured through the vaulted panes, gilding her iridescent scales, when a sharp crack split the air, a needle drone's venom bolt lancing from the shadowed galleries above. Succession alarms wailed instantly, crimson strobes flooding the chamber as lockdown shields snapped into place, trapping nobles and guards in frozen tableau. Learhay twisted, her frills flaring in reflexive command, but the bolt arced true toward her throat. Then Jonah Hale was there, her human consort, the inconvenient engineer bound by Alliance decree. Lunging from his dais position, he seized a fallen honor banner's pole, its alloy frame humming with residual ceremony fields, and whipped it across the trajectory. Down, he barked, voice cutting through the chaos like a field command. The pole interfaced seamlessly with the drone's phase lock, Jonah's fingers dancing over embedded runes he'd mapped in stolen hours during protocol drills. He overrode the bolt's guidance mid-flight, shunting its venom payload into a dissipating cascade against the platform's edge. The strike fizzled harmlessly, acrid smoke curling where it scorched stone mere inches from Learay's claw. Her heart drum steadied, pulse roar fading to tactical clarity. Guards swarmed the galleries, but Jonah remained crouched before her, scanning readouts on his wrist link. Human tech meshed crudely with serentine nets. He met her gaze, breath even, no tremor in his frame. This one moves as if crises are routine, she thought, propriety straining against a flicker of debt. The court erupted in murmurs, frills quivering from shock to suspicion. Chancellor Mael surged forward through the cordon, his robes billowing like storm clouds, flanked by Lord Vexar, a rival suitor whose lineage traced pure-blood spires untainted by alien pacts. Vexar's spines bristled, eyes narrowing on Jonah.
Treachery!
He bellowed, mandibles clacking. The human staged this farce to clutch at your throne, Majesty. His off-world devices reek of sabotage. Witness the timing, perfect for his ascent. Outrage rippled through the hall, hard-line nobles echoing the cry, their frills locking in crimson denial. Mael's gaze bored into Jonah. Calculating. The law demands purity and peril. Execute the outsider. Let the gods affirm your line unblemished. Succession klaxons droned on, amplifying the factional storm. The alliance teetered, Vorath fleets massing beyond the veil as if scenting blood. Learhay rose, scepter steady, her voice a silken thunder that quelled the din. Silence. Frills aligned in imperial gold, she extended a claw toward Jonah. Commander Hale bore the strike's deflection with foreknowledge no assassin could feign. He grants temporary immunity under my crest, inviolate. Gasps rippled. Mael's spines twitched in suppressed fury. She turned to Vexar. You, lordling, will submit to questioning. Not the pyre, yet. Escort him to the undercrypts. Vexar's mandibles parted in protest, but guards hauled him back, the court's outrage fracturing into whispers. Jonah straightened beside her, wiping residue from his hands, his expression a mask of professional calm. He questions nothing, demands no praise. Learhay noted, the human's humility a quiet counterpoint to Serentine bombast. Protocol cracked further. She gestured him to follow as they descended to the investigation vaults, lockdown humming around them. In the dim glow of truth orbs, Jonah interfaced his link with the chamber's forensic webs, multitasking feeds from drone wreckage, gallery scans, and noble biometrics. Lirha watched from her throne dais, Mail hovering like a specter at the edge. Your leniency invites rot, Majesty. The human's shield reeks of prior tampering. Jonah didn't flinch, eyes flicking between holographic shards. The bolt's phase signature matches Vorath stealth drones, micro-resonators tuned to our shields. He pulled threads across displays, a gallery access log spiking pre-ceremony laced with encrypted pings to off-world relays. And here, Lord Vexar's house sigil on a shadow transfer, funds routed through neutral exchanges. But the patterns Vorath cut, layered blinds to mask noble backers. Lirha's frills sharpened. She dismissed humans as fleeting softskins, their endurance a myth. Yet Jonah juggled data streams, Serenthine glyphs, human algorithms, LiveGuard testimonies. Without pause, connecting dots her analysts rope-chased for cycles. He leaned in, voice low. Vexar's not the head. Look, cross-reference with hardline petitions against our pact. 3 nobles, including Mail's deputy, share the relay hash. They're selling your succession to buy Vorath favor. Mail recoiled, spines paling. Lies from a bond thrall. Verify it, Jonah said evenly, exporting the web to the orb core. Truth lights flared green. Irrefutable links bloomed, messages plotting her fall, timed to shatter the alliance before Vorath struck. Lyray's resolve hardened, a regal fire kindling amid the intrigue. Calls mounted from the antechamber. Sacrifice the human to appease the purists. Preserve the line. Mail pressed, voice oily. Majesty? The ancient codes. Enough.
She silenced him with a frill snap, eyes on Jonah.
His steady presence anchored her, this off-worlder who'd turned peril to proof. Purge the implicated. Vexar and his co-conspirators to the Void trials. Seize their spires. The alliance stands. Fortified. Implicitly she credited him, her words a public pivot before the assembled feeds. Nobles bowed, frills shifting from crimson to amber accord, the court's outrage ebbing into wary respect. As guards dragged the chain Vexar past, his defiant snarls crumbling to please, Lirha caught Jonah's eye. A subtle nod, frill twitching warmer than protocol allowed. He sees patterns we grind cycles to glimpse, endures the storm without boast. Shadows of Vorath loomed larger, purists simmering in corners, but in this forge of fire partnership gleamed, equal, unyielding. The crown endured, not alone. Lyray's frill snapped rigid as the chamber's holographic alert shattered the air, crimson flares pulsing across the Meridian Spire's command nexus. Vorath incursion at Epsilon Vale, the sentinel drone intoned, its voice a metallic rasp. Frontier colony breached. Fleet signatures inbound, 3 squadrons strong. She rose from the dais, the weight of Vexar's chained exit, already fading against this fresh blaze. Jonah stood at her side, his human frame unyielding, eyes flicking to the projection where Vorath dreadnoughts carved through Serentine pickets like thorns through silk. No flinch, no query, just that steady scan, fingers drumming a subtle rhythm on his console. He pivots without pause. She noted propriety's mask thinning as council chimes summoned the hardliners, the war chamber sealed with a hiss, crystal walls blooming into star maps. Chancellor Mail swept in first, his carapace etched with ritual scars, mandibles clicking disapproval. Traditional doctrine demands withdrawal, preserve the core worlds.
Flanking him, purist admirals nodded, their frills flat with certainty, eyes sliding past Jonah as if he were ornamental chaff.
Lyra claimed the apex seat, her voice a silken blade. We defend every holding, Chancellor. Speak your contingencies. But her gaze lingered on Jonah, inviting without command. He stepped forward, unbidden yet seamless, linking his portable rig to the nexus. Hologrids spun, Serentine formations. Rigid phalanxes honed over cycles, overlaid with erratic human vectors, threading gaps the Vorath expected sealed. They're funneling through the nebula's ion streams, Jonah said, voice even, gesturing to pulsing anomalies. Serentine doctrine locks shields in lattice arrays, impenetrable head-on. But humans, we jury-rigged drone swarms in our wars, bouncing signals off debris. Blend it. Seed the streams with your micro-relays. Turn the nebula into a mirror maze. Vorath sensors fry in feedback loops while our lancers slip the flanks. Murmurs rippled, Mail's frills quivering. Human improvisation? Our lattices have held for eons. Chaos risks the fleet. Chaos they won't predict, Jonah countered, pulling ancillary feeds, Serentine schematics he'd mastered in weeks. cross-mapped to human sims. His hands blurred across dual interfaces, tweaking relay timings while querying alloy stresses, multitasking as if breathing. Lyray's pheromone sensors caught it, Admiral's vents dilating in subtle shock. He weaves our iron with his flux, patterns emerging where we see only grind. She leaned forward, frill crest high. Elaborate the integration. He did, concise. Relays cloaked in nebula chaff, Lancers microjumping via human overclock protocols, endurance tweaks that pushed Serentine frames beyond rated cycles without fracture. No boast, just facts. Is humility a quiet anchor amid the chamber's tension? Mail surged. Nullify the envoy's input. Retreat to the Spire's defensive perimeter. Law forbids alien taint and sacred war doctrine. His status voids under purity edicts. Frills flared across the council, purists chanting assent. Lyray's core tightened, succession fractures widening. Vorath's shadow a pretext for their purge. But Jonah's plan hummed in her mind, a hybrid pulse sinking their strengths. Denied, she declared, voice echoing like struck crystal. Issue orders. Relay deployment commences at dawn cycle. Admirals Keth and Vorin. Liaison Hale coordinates Vanguard signals. Defiance is treason. Mail recoiled, mandibles agape, but bowed stiffly. The chamber emptied to frantic prep, leaving Lyrae and Jonah amid flickering hollows. You've bound our fates tighter, she murmured, formality cracking as her frill brushed his shoulder. A breach no protocol forgave. He met her gaze, steady. Just connecting dots, Your Majesty. Your lattices are poetry, this is riffing off them. Battle ignited at Epsilon Vale's edge. From the Spire's command throne, linked via neural shunt, Lyrhae orchestrated the grand phalanx, her mind a nexus of fleet telemetry. Jonah flanked her, splitting feeds, one eye on relay syncs, the other plotting Lancer microjumps, voice calm over comms. Vanguard 3, bounce azimuth 47, nebula fold confirmed. Hold endurance at 120%. Hours blurred into a relentless tide. Serentine crews flagged fatigue signals, vents overheating, focus splintering after double cycles. Jonah didn't waver, sipping nutrient gel, recalibrating on the fly as Vorath adapted, punching through initial mirrors, pattern shift, their phasing jammers, counter, overload relays in sequence, mimic their signature. His fingers danced across 3 panes, voice threading Lyrhae's directive seamlessly. Her frills warmed at his resilience, no complaint as her own resolve frayed against the drain. Humans endure as if fatigue is myth. Joint commands flowed, her iron doctrine pinning Vorath centers, his ingenuity fracturing their wings. Lancer squadrons ghosted through feedback storms, shredding dreadnought flanks. Vorath flagships buckled, withdrawing in disarray, decisive, bloodless save for the Vale scars. Cheers erupted across the fleet nets as the Spire's halls thrummed victory. Lyrae deactivated the shunt, crest high, turning to Jonah, his face lined but eyes bright. We held, she said, pheromone trace carrying unvoiced gratitude. Triumph's glow faded into the grand atrium, court assembled under vaulted crystal. Mail stood central, backed by purist throngs, backlash venom thick. Victory credits doctrine alone, Empress. Revise no statutes. Nullify the human's consort claim. Succession demands purity. Lyrhae ascended the dais, Jonah at her side by right now. Liaison Hale is liaison general. He is my political consort, bound by merit over blood. Gasps rippled. Mail's carapace paled. Revised statutes affirm it. Hybrid command proven. Challenge at peril. Murmurs swelled, but admirals who tasted victory stepped forward, frills signaling assent. Mail yielded, protocol's chains binding even him. The court ratified amid chimes. Shared sovereignty etched into law, Lyrhae and Jonah assuming dual thrones. Her ancestral mandate fused with his proven flux. As seals glowed acceptance, Lyrae's gaze locked on Jonah's, propriety fully cracked. Her frill touch lingered. Born to rule alone, I forged an equal. Shadows of purist dissent lingered. Vorath's retreat a mere reprieve. But in this unyielding partnership, the Empire gleamed anew, transformed, unbreakable.